Labor Day, September 5th. From ABC, this is World News Tonight with Peter Jennings, this evening reporting from Washington.
Good evening. The fate of Korean Airlines Flight 7 continues to anger, but also to mystify vast numbers of people. Tonight, here in Washington, during an address from the Oval Office, the President will have the administration's latest details, at least those it wants to make public. Mr. Reagan will also lay out what the United States intends doing to punish the Soviets. And we begin at the White House, where ABC's White House correspondent Sam Donaldson is already standing by. Sam, as much as you know at this point, what is the President going to say?
Peter, the President will do three things tonight. He will continue to express the outrage that he feels and the civilized world feels about this incident. And he will continue to press the Soviet Union to come clean about what really happened. Secondly, he will play excerpts of the tapes from the Soviet fighter planes. The tapes he played yesterday for a congressional delegation here. He'll play them on television so that we will actually be able to hear the Soviet pilots during those final moments before they shot down the plane. Mr. Reagan himself will not give us a direct translation, but will paraphrase what the Soviet pilots have said in Russian. And third, he will outline, Peter, some of the steps that he hopes the world will take to further isolate the Soviet Union because of this. Mainly steps to restrict the Soviet airliner Aeroflot's operations. He hopes that countries will restrict its landing rights, and he hopes that organizations such as labor unions will not service Aeroflot planes. And finally, in two respects, Mr. Reagan will announce that the United States will suspend negotiations on a cultural exchange agreement and will cancel a transportation agreement with the Soviet Union.
Sam, in a phrase, does it look like the kind of speech which will satisfy these people who are really angry at the Soviets and want them punished badly?
No, Peter. It will not satisfy the right wing who wants a really strong action against Moscow. Mr. Reagan is not going to take that kind of action tonight, not going to try to encourage the world to take it.
Sam, thank you very much. There have already been some sanctions imposed on the Soviets. Canada has banned all Aeroflot flights for 60 days, and that cuts the only direct regular Soviet link to North America. The President's speech to the nation, by the way, will be telecast at 8 o'clock Eastern Time tonight, 8 o'clock Eastern Time, and we will be here to cover it live. In Moscow tonight, a Soviet television commentator, pretty obviously speaking for the Kremlin, added just a little more to the Soviet version of events. He said, and I quote him, "Our defense forces fulfilled their duty in defending the security of the motherland." Again, the Soviets have said Korean Flight 7 was being used to spy. And the result, said the commentator, was the death of the plane and the death of the people. The human sorrow which we share, he said, was not our fault. Closer to an admission, but still not close enough in the eyes of the West. The commentator also compared the White House to the Nazis. When the Hitlerites attacked, he said, they forced women and children in front of them. Well, as ABC's Walter Rogers reports from Moscow, the Soviet media is now devoting a lot of time to the incident.
Soviet television commentators are insisting their pilot who chased that South Korean airliner did not know he was pursuing a civilian plane, but believed he was after an American reconnaissance aircraft reported to be in the area. Quoting the Soviet Air Defense Chief, Colonel General Semyon Romanov, the Russians now claim their pilot waved his wings and blinked his navigational lights at the intruding airliner pilot. But that raises the additional question, was not the Soviet pilot then close enough to visually see what he was tracking? One of the people asking that and other questions was Pennsylvania Congressman William Gray, who met with officials at the Soviet Foreign Ministry today. And at a news conference, Gray said the answers he got were unbelievable.
When I challenged them on the use of tracer shells to warn the 747, their response to my challenge that, according to our intelligence, that a missile was fired, was that that was not true.
And the official Soviet line continues to be that the entire incident was an American provocation and that the Reagan administration is using it to smear the Soviet people and obstruct progress at the Geneva arms talks due to resume tomorrow. Walter Rogers, ABC News, Moscow.
And now that other aircraft in the sky. As we now know, Flight 7 was not the only plane with which the Soviets were concerned that night. Here's our Pentagon correspondent, John McWethy.
The Korean passenger liner flew out of Alaska, over the North Pacific, and finally off course over the Soviet Union, where the U.S. government claims it was shot down. American officials say the second plane in the area, an American spy plane called an RC-135, was northbound along the Soviet coast over international waters on a routine mission gathering information about Soviet radar and military operations. Pentagon sources say the two planes at one point passed within 75 miles of each other, And when the American military plane actually crossed the flight path of the Korean jetliner, they were 300 miles apart, traveling in different directions. U.S. officials say by the time the Korean plane was shot down, the RC-135 was at least 1,000 miles away. Could the Soviets have mistaken the Korean jetliner for the American RC-135? U.S. officials admit that the Russians were apparently confused initially about what they were tracking, that in radio communications they referred to the Korean passenger liner at least once as the RC-135. Sources contend that the Russians later dropped any characterization, referring to the plane only as the, quote, unidentified target. Once visual contact was made, American officials say it would have been nearly impossible to mistake the two types of planes. The Korean jetliner was a 747 jumbo jet with a characteristic hump on top near the front. It was also 100 feet longer than the RC-135. Did the American reconnaissance plane know that the Korean jetliner had strayed off course and was in trouble? U.S. officials say no. Was the RC-135 shadowing the commercial airliner, which U.S. sources say this type of spy plane sometimes does to monitor frequencies of Soviet radar?
It wasn't trailing. It was on an entirely different route. It wasn't anywhere near where the Korean airliner was, and the Soviets knew exactly where our aircraft was at all times.
Nonetheless, as more information comes to light about the incident, it is becoming less and less clear what actually happened. John McWethy, ABC News, the Pentagon.
In the waters between Japan and the Soviet Union, the search goes on for the remnants of Flight 7. Two searches, of course, the Soviet one inside Soviet territorial waters, and the U.S.-Japanese one to the south of Sakhalin Island. We don't know what the Soviets have found. The Japanese have picked up a piece of heat shield material, but we don't know yet if it is from Flight 7. Later in this broadcast, the fighting in Lebanon now that the Israelis have pulled back. The U.S. labor movement challenged as never before. And the top-ranked men's player knocked out of the U.S. Open Tennis Championships.
This is World News Tonight, brought to you by Brim Decaffeinated Coffee.
There he is, the red-winged blackbird. And there he goes. You want some coffee?
Oh, love some. Just half a cup. Caffeine, you know.
But this is new Brim decaffeinated coffee.
New Brim?
Now there's a new, rich, roasted taste that really satisfies. New Brim.
It tastes this rich. Fill it to the rim.
Try the new, rich, roasted taste of Brim.
Ford Escort. We made it with four-wheel independent suspension for a big car ride. We made it with front-wheel drive for traction. We made it with an efficient CVH engine. We made Escort very roomy and fun to drive, day in and day out. And we made it in America. You, in turn, helped make Ford Escort the best-selling car in the world. Have you driven a Ford lately?
The stock market is closed for the holiday today. On Friday, the Dow Industrial stood at 1215.45. That's a gain of more than 188 points this year. World News Tonight will continue.
Curtis Mathis National Trade-In Days are on.
Oh, George, I can't wait to trade this old TV for up to $300 off on a Curtis Mathis video recorder or camera.
Ah, with a 4-year warranty.
Oh, audio equipment or color TV.
A 4-year warranty.
Oh, a big screen TV or gorgeous cabinets.
With a 4-year warranty.
Oh, with their exclusive 4-year warranty. That means quality.
National Trade-In Days now at your Curtis Mathis Home Entertainment Center.
How do you like my new dentures?
They're beautiful, but you're talking funny.
Yeah, I'm afraid they'll slip. Maybe I'll try a cream adhesive.
Oh, don't. I use Fast Teeth powder. It's better because it doesn't ooze like creams, and it holds in no time.
Oh.
Here's a cream. Here's Fast Teeth, the fine powder. It won't ooze like creams and gives you faster holding power.
Great idea.
The lunch.
No, the Fast Teeth. Oh. I feel more like myself again.
Fast Teeth, a better hold in no time.
And now Washington's other complex problem overseas, the Middle East. Israel's Prime Minister Begin has again delayed his formal resignation. His successor, Foreign Minister Yitzhak Shamir, is having a problem getting a coalition together which can actually govern. The Israelis have warned the Syrians against taking control of any areas just vacated by the Israelis in Lebanon. As fully expected, the rival Christian and Druze Muslim Lebanese militias have been fighting for the territory without letting up. Here's ABC's John Donovan.
At times, it may look like an amateur's war, where a right-wing militiaman rips off shots at nothing in particular. But the targets are very real, and the politics of this war sophisticated. Heavy guns have been brought in by the official Lebanese army, which is trying to control the mountains now that the Israelis are gone. Today, the army did push forward into the hills, taking at least one large town from left-wing Druze militiamen who reject the army's authority. Reports here say that the army is getting help from the right-wing militia, and that the Druze are getting help from the Syrian army. Informed sources here fear that the Syrians have grander designs to control this country. The crossfire, however, hits anybody, including a team of North American journalists. Clark Todd of Canadian television is still in the mountains, a shrapnel wound in his chest, unable to leave because of heavy shelling. ABC cameraman Brian Kelly and 3 others, their car destroyed, walked 17 miles out of the mountains to get help for Todd. Shrapnel is flying where the U.S. Marines are posted at the foot of the mountain battles. Today, a dire warning was issued to the U.S. from the man who heads the Druze militia.
We are obliged to defend ourselves. I hope we will not be obliged to fight to the peacekeeping force. But if we have to defend ourselves, I can do nothing.
Again today, the Marines had men wounded, none of them seriously, as they sit and watch a war that just is not theirs to stop. John Donovan, ABC News, Beirut.
One other note from overseas. Pope John Paul told American Catholic bishops today they're falling down on the job. Speaking to them in person at his summer residence, he told the bishops they had failed to teach American Catholics to obey church teachings on sexuality, divorce, and birth control. John Paul also said there would never be a place in the church for women priests. From out of space, in California early today, the flawless return of the Space Shuttle Challenger. This is what it looked like early this morning using an infrared camera. As the 100-ton orbiter touched down at Edwards Air Base in California, the runway was bathed in giant floodlights, and the landing was as precise and smooth as was the rest of the mission. One of the people who witnessed its return to Earth described the first night landing as surrealist. On this Labor Day, the government released statistics on that most appetizing fruit of labor, our personal incomes. It said the average per-person income for 1982 was a bit over $11,000. That is a $616 increase over 1981, and it came in spite of the recession. In 31 states, the average income was higher than the $11,000, the highest in Alaska, $16,000, the lowest in Mississippi, just under $7,800.
Sorry, had to practice.
Yvonne, how do you do it? Tennis, family, everything.
Isn't easy. And after Morgan was born, my doctor told me I had iron poor blood.
You?
Biggest nutritional problem we women have. Now I protect myself, eat right, and take Geritol every day.
Geritol is iron-rich. Great protection against iron poor blood. Iron is Geritol's middle name.
Mommy! Coming!
I'm going to get Geritol.
It's great protection against iron poor blood.
See Dick. See Dick lose his job. See Jane. See Jane lose her job. Jobs are changing. The world is changing. And unless our children learn to change with it, they'll graduate to unemployment. Let's invest in education and give our teachers the support they need today so that they can give our kids the support they need for tomorrow. Education. It pays.
The first Labor Day was celebrated in 1882 with this parade in New York. Congress made it a national holiday in 1894. World News Tonight will continue.
Millions of people switch to Shell, and good things are happening.
I'm a minister, and I have to have an automobile that I can depend on. In order to have an automobile you can depend on, you have to have good, dependable products. I get those kind of products from my Shell dealer.
My Shell dealer takes good care of our car, and he treats us like a friend.
This car is actually my office on wheels. I expect to get what I pay for, and Shell gives it to me.
The Shell products that I've used, I think are good products.
There never was a better time to switch to Shell.
I feel good about it.
Now there's a longer-lasting flavor in new Dentyne. How long will the flavor last?
Till the cows come home.
Possibly an eternity. Longer than I did.
Denteen's been improved. New Denteen has longer-lasting flavor, so you can brush your breath even longer.
Commander Miller, how long will the flavor last you?
About 3 million miles.
And now once again, Labor Day. The traditional parades took place across the country. The most active parader was Lane Kirkland, president of the AFL-CIO, who marched in New York to start the day, then appeared in the Chicago parade before winding up with an anti-Reagan speech in Omaha. Lately, it has become something of a cliche to say that labor unions are dying. Glenn Watts of the Communications Workers pointed out today that labor membership 100 years ago was about 300,000 people. Now it's more than 20 million. Well, that doesn't contradict the fact the union movement is in some trouble. Unions were strong before the New Deal, but federal law in the Roosevelt era gave workers the legal right to elect them.
Through the workers' blood shall run.
Union membership soared. By the end of World War II, 35% of the workforce was unionized. "I'm a union man" was a proud slogan.
For the union makes us strong.
Workers had won important victories: an 8-hour day, minimum wage, safer working conditions, workers' compensation. Today, union membership has spread across the landscape of American culture. But hold it. On this day, in 1983, the union movement is in trouble. While membership in white-collar and professional unions is actually on the increase, the percentage of the total unionized workforce is only half what it was in 1945. The number of established unions being decertified, voted out by their workers, has doubled in the last 10 years. For the first time since the war, unions are making major concessions. The gospel of more for the union man simply isn't convincing. Often spurned by government, remember the air traffic controllers strike? Threatened in almost every sector by automation, American unionism may be at a turning point. What are the reasons?
The very severe, long recession, if not depression, which has laid off large numbers of people in those parts of the economy where the unions have been particularly strong.
I think that unions are in decline because of their lack of credibility that has developed over the last few years. They've taken inconsistent positions. The rank and file, many of whom are on the unemployment rolls, are now saying, "I believe my union leadership, and look where I am."
Stephen Cabot and others like him make their living advising companies how to get rid of unions, or even better, keep them away from the company gate altogether.
I'm phoning up laid off UAW.
In union locals across the country, this is Local 600 of the auto workers in Detroit, the Stephen Cabots are called union busters. They are the enemy. Howard Smith, on the other hand, who used to belong to Local 600, thinks the enemy is within.
They were a bunch of crooks, shysters, you know. I didn't respect them. I think they're more concerned about their internal politics and what's going on with internally with them than they are about doing what they're going about the purpose that they're there for, you know, taking care of the workers.
Howard Smith is talking about his union leadership, and his frustration with the union is not an isolated case. One reason for the membership's decline. And there is competition in the workplace. At this Japanese auto plant in Smyrna, Tennessee, there is no union at all.
I really can't see how the union could help the people here at Nissan. The attitudes of all the workers here are just tremendous. The benefits and things that Nissan have given me are outstanding.
At hundreds of businesses like Nissan, there is what they call a new management style. It is clearly designed to avoid unions.
And we feel that dealing directly with our employees is the very best way to operate. We think that having a third party in the equation is not the way to operate a facility.
Many traditional union leaders wonder how long Americans will put up with calisthenics and say you can't import Japanese style like you can their cars. But the so-called new management style is spreading through American companies. Of the 1,500 high-tech companies in the Silicon Valley and the almost 200 similar plants near Boston, there are no unions. Douglas Fraser is former president of the UAW.
The union is going to have to shift emphasis a bit and put more of their resources and a greater commitment toward I put two things together, education and political action, and be spending less of their resources in the collective bargaining arena.
And there are certainly new frontiers. Women are under-organized, so are minorities. So, in geographical terms, is the American South. Jonathan Lang is a local union organizer for the Amalgamated Clothing and Textile Workers. Present address, Galax, Virginia.
The days of just handing out a leaflet, passing out cards, and having an election are gone. The very solid, long-term work unions are going to have to do of moving to towns like Galax, setting up shop, and sitting here and building organizations will be the future of the union movement.
Galax, in some ways, is a microcosm of the present and future struggle between labor and management. 6,000 people live in Galax. The only national industry is Hanes.
Before it's called Hanes.
Yes, Inspector 12.
The Amalgamated Clothing Workers want to organize the real Inspector 12 and her co-workers. At the tiny union office, a handful of Hanes employees have been active in the union effort. One of them is Mary Jennings.
Why I personally want a union, I would like to be able to have a say in the workplace, in what I sell my labor for, because that's the only thing I have to sell is my labor, and I value it.
Hanes itself is up at the east end of town. They make underwear and T-shirts here. Not a single worker we met said it was a sweatshop by any means. The workers who want a union say Hanes is paying them poorly and isn't concerned about their health. Some workers charge that speed work and repetitious motion has caused injury to their arms and wrists. Most importantly, they insist, management is intimidating workers in order to keep the union out.
The company gives speeches in the plant to try to scare people. They've tried to convince people that the union will cause bloody strikes and boycotts.
That's true. Hanes, like other companies, has had advice on how to resist the unions. The message is blunt. Unions, says Hanes, will put your livelihood at risk.
We do stress the impact that this external campaign can have on their jobs and the overall success of this total company. Yes, sir.
During the time we spent here, anti-union signs were up all over the plant floor. Inspired by the company, it was hard to tell. But anti-union employees sought us out to make their point.
I have worked other places. There's other places in Galax. I've even worked for my own father. There's just no place like Hanes. I'm just tickled to death with it.
The union's not trying to organize here. They're trying to do this whole company in.
In this plant and others around the country, there is not always, as they say, a bottom line. One thing is clear and acknowledged by management. The threat of unionization has encouraged, even forced companies to think of their employees in a way they haven't been before, improving the quality of working life for most of us. As for the unions, they are not, in most cases, facing the brutal sweatshop conditions which have existed in America's labor past. Their power and government legislation have seen to that. Labor leaders, nonetheless, hold up a warning sign they believe must be heeded.
Absent a union, and you may have the best working conditions in the world, the best wages in the world, and the best fringe benefits in the world, but you only have it not as a matter of right, but because your boss decides to give it to you. And what the boss giveth, the boss can take it away.
The last word to labor on Labor Day. At the beginning, we referred to some confident remarks about organized labor made today by Glenn Watts of the Communications Workers. Last year on this day, he said unions will be around in the year 2000. The question, he added, is will there be much to celebrate? Unions must change with the times, said Watts, or risk being overrun by them.
Miss, what's that cereal you're enjoying?
Oh, with all these delicious dates, raisins, and walnuts. It's fruit and... I forget.
Post Fruit and Fiber cereal. It tastes so good, you forget the fiber.
The name? Fruit and... I can't remember. Oh, my honor.
Fruit and Fiber tastes so good, you forget the fiber.
Fruit and... You tell him, dear.
Fruit and Fiber, also with apples and cinnamon. It tastes so good, you forget the fiber.
I wanted one more shot at that old fire engine, but then Duke got into the act. Ah, Duke.
How about some coffee?
So your book's about the South?
Old country, really. That's good coffee.
That's Maxwell House.
Seems whenever coffee tastes this good, good to the last drop, it couldn't be anything but Maxwell House.
It couldn't be any
tonight on Nightline. The president's response to the Russian attack on an unarmed Korean airliner, plus reaction to Mr. Reagan's expression of outrage and call for action.
Back in '69, Subaru was pretty much alone in introducing front-wheel drive. In '75, with on-demand four-wheel drive, we were alone. And now with turbo traction, turbo plus on-demand four-wheel drive and automatic transmission, we're alone again. And we don't plan to be part of the crowd in the future either. Subaru, inexpensive and built to stay that way.
Wrap the gift yet? No, my arthritis is acting up and I'm out of aspirin. Oh, take my Bufferin. Plain aspirin's smart, but it can upset your stomach. Taking Bufferin for minor arthritis pain is smarter. Some stomachs can be delicate, like fine china, and plain aspirin can upset them. Bufferin has aspirin doctors recommend most for hours of relief, plus special buffers that help protect against stomach upset. How do you feel now? A lot smarter.
Bufferin is smarter for arthritis, also in extra strength.
And finally tonight, two major sports victories. It's Australia who will challenge for the coveted America's Cup in yacht racing. Australia 2, that's the yacht with the famous or infamous winged keel. Today beat Britain's Victory 83 in the waters off Newport, Rhode Island. Australia was 4-1 in trials over the British, so that's no great surprise. There was a surprise at Flushing Meadow, New York this afternoon. John McEnroe lost in the fourth round of the U.S. Open Tennis Championships. As ABC's Dick Schaap reports, it was a good day for the 16th seed, Bill Scanlon.
The word for Bill Scanlon was always promising. He was the national collegiate champion 7 years ago, but as a pro, he hardly ever lived up to his promise until today, against John McEnroe, the top seed in the U.S. Open, and sometimes, of course, the bad seed.
It was booing. They were booing.
We've talked about this, sir, in my time.
No. Okay, now wait a minute. One other thing.
The first two sets both went to tiebreakers, and both times Scanlon dominated the tiebreakers, winning them decisively, taking a two-set lead against the man who had beaten him in 8 of their 10 previous meetings. Yet the rivalry had always been heated and not friendly, a feeling McEnroe emphasized today with an occasional shot aimed more to destroy than to defeat. McEnroe won the third set, which is what the #1 player in the world is supposed to do against a player who has never finished a year ranked among the top 25. But in the fourth set, after McEnroe turned against the crowd...
Can you ask him again?
Ladies and gentlemen, as a courtesy of the players, in the middle of a point, please don't come out with the U's and the R's. I appreciate your interest, but please don't.
The crowd then turned against McEnroe, and so did the match. Scanlon broke McEnroe's service in the 5th game of the set and went on to eliminate the 3-time champion from the U.S. Open.
I really think this has to be the best I've played in any major tournament ever.
Scanlon advanced to the quarterfinals for the first time in his career. His promise finally, at least for the moment, fulfilled. Dick Schaap, ABC News, New York.
And of course, there's the next round. That's our report on world news tonight. For all of us at ABC News, I'm Peter Jennings. Good night.
Tonight after the football game and late local news, Ted Koppel reports the latest in news on Nightline. From ABC, this has been World News Tonight.
Tonight, that's Incredible returns with the awesome Kamikaze car draw. Then, on the season premiere of Monday Night Football, Super Bowl champion Redskins clash with the Cowboys. And on Thursday, in a special primetime matchup, San Francisco battles Minnesota. It's an incredible football week on ABC.